It is almost the Super Bowl, and today we're making 3 of my favorite game day dips. Hi, I'm Tara with Simply Made Eats, and welcome to my channel. Today I'm super excited to share 3 of my favorite game day recipes. These are all dips, which I love because you can just pair them with some Tostito scoops, or you can use like the Frito ones. This is super easy, really simple, and everybody loves dips for game day. We're gonna be getting started with a classic spinach and artichoke dip. This is definitely like the most time consuming of all the recipes, but don't worry, it's still ready in under 30 minutes, so let's get started. As far as the chopping goes on this recipe, it's pretty simple. We're just gonna be chopping up a shallot. I like to use a smaller one for this one and just really chop it up nice and fine. We're also gonna be chopping up 1 garlic clove, and you wanna mince that as well. And then we're gonna be adding some bacon just for a little extra salty crunch. This is totally optional, you don't have to add it. However, I'm going to be adding 2 strips of original bacon, and I like to just cut this up into like 1-inch pieces so it just cooks really nice and evenly in the pan. For cheese, we're gonna be using some Monterey Jack cheese, and then I have some cheddar cheese. I'm using Cabot for both of them just because I love their cheeses, they're super good. We're gonna use about 4 ounces of each cheese, which is gonna be 2 cups total, 1 cup for each cheese. I always shred a little bit extra because I know I'm gonna snack on it. I love cheese, like love, love, love. For the baby spinach, I just like to like tear the ends off and then just toss those into a bowl and not use them. It's totally fine if you wanna leave the ends on. I prefer baby spinach over like a frozen spinach or a regular spinach just because it's a little bit tender and the taste is just not as strong as regular spinach. With frozen spinach, you just get like a lot of water in there. Also, it tends to turn things really green. For the remainder of the ingredients, we have some butter. We're just using a tablespoon of salted butter. We also have some sour cream. We're gonna be using flour and milk just to really thicken up that mixture. Then we have baby spinach, and we're gonna be using artichokes. I like to buy this can of quartered artichokes because I don't have to do anything to it other than just drain it. And as far as spices go, we're using salt, pepper, and a little bit of red pepper flakes if you like spicy. We also have 8 ounces of cream cheese. Next up, we're gonna preheat our oven to 400 degrees. We're also gonna be using a cast iron skillet. I love this recipe because we're making it in the cast iron skillet, we're gonna bake it in the cast iron skillet, and then we're gonna serve it in the cast iron skillet as well. It makes things so much easier without like a ton of dishes. So we wanna put this on the stovetop on medium-low heat. First up, we're gonna add in our butter and just allow this to melt a little bit. Then we're gonna add in that bacon. We want an original or a traditional bacon, nothing else like too flavored. Then add in the shallot. You're gonna stir this for about 5 minutes and just let that bacon get really nice and crispy. Then add in the garlic. Next, we're gonna add in our spinach and just let this wilt. It should only take about a minute or so. Next, we're gonna add in our flour, and we're gonna add in that whole milk. Give this a really good stir. This is gonna help it get really nice and thick and creamy. Then we're gonna reduce the heat to low, add in that cream cheese. Let that melt, and then plop in that sour cream and give this a good stir. Next up, we're gonna add our salt, pepper, and red pepper flakes, and then you wanna add in artichokes. We're also gonna add in half of our Monterey Jack cheese and half of the cheddar cheese. Then you wanna save the rest for topping. Next, we're gonna pop this into our 400-degree oven for about 10 minutes until it's nice and bubbly. Okay, you guys, this one is all done. It looks amazing. We are serving this one with tortilla chips, or you could use like really thin crostini or like French bread slices. That's always really yummy, but really filling. So just know you would be like full off that. So I'm snacking on this artichoke dip. It's so good. The bacon really brings in like a nice little smokiness. You guys gotta try that. That's a wrap on our spinach and artichoke dip. Next up, we are doing a favorite in our house, which is this chunky guacamole recipe. It is filled with all kinds of veggies. I love this one too because a lot of people are like still on healthy diets, and we need to make sure we have food for them too. And of course, avocados are a healthy fat, and we've got all kinds of veggies in this one. So we are gonna whip this up so easy, you guys. Less than 10 ingredients, and we don't have to cook anything. We are just mashing and chopping. Okay, I can't stop eating that spinach and artichoke dip. It's so good, like ridiculous. You have to make it. Next up, we have got our guacamole. So the biggest thing about guacamole, those avocados have to be ripe, y'all. If they're not ripe, they taste bitter, they're not very good. And if they're too ripe, then your guacamole is gonna be brown and gross. So what you're looking for is when you press down on this, you want it to just give a little bit. If it's mushy and your fingers stink too much, then those are not good. And if it's too hard, then it's not worth using it. You gotta wait a couple days. My best trick for this is just to buy like double the avocados. That way you can use them later if they're not ready yet. Just make sure you don't buy them brown and mushy because that's the worst. A good way to tell if they're done is, I mean, obviously you have to slice them open, but you're just gonna cut around like this. And when you do that, the pit should fall right out. This is one of my favorite game day recipes because I can whip it up in seriously 5 minutes. And if you have a lot of people over, it's great because you can just like double the recipe up. Right now, I'm just getting all those pits out of my avocados. That one has a yucky brown spot on it, so I'm gonna cut that out. All right, so once you're done cutting these in half, we're gonna go ahead and scoop all of our avocado out. Make sure you scoop deep so you get that dark green layer. I remember like when I first started making things with avocados, like I grew up in New York, so like, I don't know, we just like didn't eat avocados. My husband's from California and that's when I really started eating avocado. But in the beginning I didn't like them because like the texture thing. But he would get so mad at me because when I started trying to like prep guacamole, I would like leave like half the avocado in there. So now I know, you gotta make sure you dig deep because that green part has got a lot of flavor in it. They used to just eat it with like, they would slice it, his family, with just like a little bit of salt and like lemon juice. And I was like, I don't know. I don't know about that. It's the first time I ate it, that's how I tried it. I think if I would have had guacamole the first time, I would have been like better with it because all the other stuff in it. The good thing about guacamole too is like, if there's an ingredient you don't like if you have people coming over who hate cilantro, which is really common, you can just leave it out. All right, this is looking fantastic. So what we're gonna do next is we're gonna give this a mash, but we're not gonna mash it until it's thin. We want it to be chunky still because I like chunky guacamole. So I'm just gonna give this a good mash. And if you don't have one of these things, it's fine. You can just use a fork. And if they're right, they should mash really easy. So I'm gonna do it like 12 to 15 times so it's still really nice and chunky. Another thing about guacamole is you wanna fix it like pretty close to when people are coming over because it will get brown fast. I like totally forgot to chop up all my ingredients first, so I'm gonna be doing that. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna add a little bit of lime juice right now just to help preserve it. And just stir that in. I'm just doing 2 teaspoons of lime juice to start. If you feel like you need more, you definitely can add it, but I don't like it when it gets like so limey that that's all you can taste. Next up, we're gonna chop up some red onion. We need about 1/8 of a cup. We have 1 Roma tomato. We want this with no seeds and just diced nice and fine. And then we've got a jalapeno. You can use a half or a whole jalapeno here. We've got a little bit of hot sauce, maybe a teaspoon or so. I'm using Cholula, which is not very spicy. We have 2 tablespoons of fresh cilantro. We want to chop that up nice and fine. If you don't want to add cilantro, that's fine. You can leave it out. And then for spices, this is my secret ingredient, you guys. First, we have salt, which is not my secret ingredient, but you need salt too. My secret ingredient for guacamole is cumin. It is so good in guacamole. It tastes delicious. You got to try it. Just cut it all up on one cutting board. Everything's going in the same place, so it's fine if it mixes together. You could also do a little fresh garlic in this if you want. Okay, so we have all of our veggies chopped up. I've got jalapeno, tomato, red onion, and cilantro. We're gonna just put it all right into our guacamole and our avocado. Guacamole. All right, and then we're also gonna add in our cumin and salt. And our hot sauce. All right, then we're just gonna give this a good stir and it is ready to eat. This one's so fun. It's super colorful and always a great one for football. And you can see it just has this really good, thick and chunky texture. All right, I'm going in for a bite. So fresh, so good. Okay, next up, our final recipe is a buffalo chicken dip. We're gonna be using cottage cheese for this one, so it's really high protein, so let's get started. As far as prep work goes, it's really easy. We're gonna be chopping up some green onion, or you can use chives for this recipe. We just need about 1/4 cup or so, and it's only gonna be used for garnishing the top, so it's not really that important in the recipe. We also have some blue cheese for the topping. If you don't like blue cheese, just leave it off. But I like to just add a couple crumbles over the top at the end. It just makes it look pretty. You could also drizzle on some ranch at the end to make it look really fancy. We're also using a rotisserie chicken for this recipe, but I'm only using one breast. I wanted to take the skin off and then just either cube or shred this. If it's cold, it's a little bit harder to shred than if it's warm, but you can do it either way that you like. And then as far as the cottage cheese goes, I am a big texture person and I'm not really big on cottage cheese, but I love it because it adds a ton of protein to this recipe. So what I'm gonna do is take it, put it in like a food processor and just blend it up, because if you don't, it's gonna have some of these chunks in at the end, and some people don't care about that. But if you want it smooth and creamy like I do, then just give it a nice little blend first. We're also gonna be using some buffalo wing hot sauce for this recipe. I shouldn't say hot sauce, it's just buffalo wing sauce. I'm using Frank's Red Hot. It's like the classic version, so make sure to use that one. And then I've got a cup of cheddar cheese that I've grated, and you wanna grate this yourself from a block because those bag cheeses have a lot of preservatives in them and it just doesn't melt that well. And then I have an 8-ounce block of cream cheese. You guys, if you add your cottage cheese in the food processor, it seriously whips it into like the perfect texture. It's like yogurt right now. So the next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna add our cottage cheese with our buffalo wing sauce and our cream cheese together and give it a good mix. I like to add my cream cheese first and really just like kind of smooth it out a bit. Make sure your cream cheese is softened at room temperature for about 2 hours before you start this recipe. It's gonna be way easier to work with like that. Next up, we're gonna add our chicken. We also have a cup of Monterey Jack cheese. We're gonna be using just half of this right now. And then we're gonna save the other half for topping. And we're just gonna stir this up until it's nice and combined. Next, we're just gonna add this into a casserole dish, or you can use like an 8x8 pan. This is like an 8x10. You could also just put it into a skillet. That's totally fine too. I'm gonna cover the top with foil, then we're gonna bake this at 375 degrees for 15 minutes. I like to pull mine off and then just give it a broil for about 2 to 3 minutes to get the top really nice and bubbly. Once this comes out of the oven, I'm just gonna hit it with a little bit of blue cheese on top, which is totally optional. Some people hate blue cheese, but I love it. You could also do a little bit of like a ranch drizzle. And then we are adding on our green onions. This just gives it like a nice little crunch. And it makes it so pretty. You guys, that's it. This is our last recipe, this buffalo chicken dip. It's so creamy, so delicious. You can serve it with chips, with celery, carrots, crackers, whatever you want. That's it, we're all done with these 3 dips to make for Super Bowl Sunday. I hope you guys love these recipes. If you did, make sure to give it a thumbs up and make sure to subscribe for new recipes every single week. I love sharing them with you. Make sure to also get on my list below for my Game Day series, which will put you on my newsletter too. It gives you all kinds of game day recipe ideas for 5 days in a row. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye. Happy game day.